Jingfang is a Beijing-based writer who won the coveted Hugo Award in 2016 for her novelette Folding Beijing, becoming the first Chinese woman to win the honor and beating out sci-fi heavyweight Stephen King. Her story is a dystopian tale about social inequality. I met Jingfang at her writing studio in Beijing. Folding Beijing, walk us through it. For those who haven't read it, how would you describe it to somebody if they were to say at a dinner party, what's this all about?
It's about a city divided into 3 different spaces, and these spaces come out in circulation. One space come out for 24 hours, and the second one come out for 16 hours, and the third one come out for 8 hours, and then the circulation goes again. And then the people in the 3 spaces, they never meet each other, they almost don't know each other, and they can't imagine the life in the other spaces. And then people become separated, and the difference among different people becoming larger and larger.
Jingfang received her degree in physics from the prestigious Tsinghua University and also her PhD in economics from there. But her passion was to write. Her stories are grounded in the problems she witnessed in modern-day China. You talk about is giving voice to invisible people, people we may pass every day, but we don't notice. So how heightened are your senses in that regard that you recognize the invisible people? Because, I've talked to people before, you can sit on a subway with somebody, you have no idea what they're going through. You must really be observant.
Because I used to be an economist, and economists that really do some projects to give investigations to those people. We really did some investigations to the migrant workers' family in big cities, and also we visited a lot of homes of the left behind children in poor villages. And also we did data analysis day by day. I really can meet some people that do not appear in our normal life, and especially if you are a high earning white collar internet company, then you will never encounter another another person who is struggling in life.
And you have your main character who wants to journey, because he wants to get some money together to get a child into kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And really it's kind of this struggle, and yet you can see people around you who are going through those same sorts of things. So that's one of the things, one of the elements that you can find in present day that's folded into your story, even though it's in the future.
Yeah, I would like to describe the difficulty of the struggle for some poor families, and education is sometimes the only hope that they can pursue to make their children have a better life. But to let their children to have a better education is one of the largest difficulties in their life. So I've seen those families that parents almost give out everything they have to let their children to have some kind of better education. They work really hard, they almost sacrifice their life and healthy to send their children to a better school.
Thanks to a sci-fi trilogy published in 2008 by Chinese writer Liu Xixan, Chinese sci-fi saw a global boost. His work was then translated into English in 2014 and won the Hugo Award for Best Novel the following year, ushering in greater global focus on other Chinese sci-fi writers like Jingfang. How strange is it to have your words in another language, and how do you create a translation that connects in the way that it would with the Chinese reader?
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have Ken Liu as my translator, because he has the Chinese as his mother language. He can really understand Chinese deeply as a mother language. And then his English is perfect. So he graduates from Harvard English literature department. So he is one of those really rare translators that mastered the two languages. So his translation is really very mature. He used all the expressions that familiar to the Western audiences, but still keep all the essence of the original story. So that kind of translator is not very easy to find. So I'm quite lucky to know Ken, and I'm quite lucky that Ken at that time in his life, he really spent a lot of time helping a lot of Chinese writers to translate works. He translated, I think, almost more than 20 Chinese authors' works.
Chinese science fiction. How do you think a Chinese science fiction author is different than perhaps one in the West? And what do we get from a story from you, perhaps, that's different than if we were to read a science fiction writer in the West, do you think?
Chinese science fiction writers are quite sensitive to the fast development of the society because in our lives we almost experience the four eras: 80s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. All these eras are so different. We almost changed a lot of things day by day. So in Chinese writers' writing, I can see the changing of the society and the description of the society in their works. Perhaps in the Western world, science fiction imagination is more purely about techniques. The technical development or the imaginary world, the far future, the space odyssey, and all these things. But in China, a lot of science fiction writers, the science fiction stories are focusing on the fast changing society. We'd like to put a lot of science fiction development bond together with the changing lives, changing society, changing families, and all the things. So it has more relatedness into the real life.
Jingfang wrote Folding Beijing in only 3 days. It would take 3 years before she won the Hugo Award. In that time, she continued to write stories and submit them for publication. So let's walk over to this table. It's just packed full of literature, and I want to talk to you about what writers must go through, and I want you to be really honest with me. Everybody wants to have a piece of literature that's sitting on a table that people are going to read. And yet I think writers have doubts, and confidence is a big thing. You write this amazing work, you send it off, it's rejected. Some people would have just said, I guess I'm maybe not that good. What is it inside you that said, no, I'm going to submit it again? And how big a blow was it to get that rejection? And how do you, have the confidence to kind of overcome that?
Actually, I did have that kind of struggling time that each time when I get rejected, I had I doubt myself, whether I have the capability to write. But then when I calm down, I just ask myself, what's the true feeling in my heart? Can this story really represent the feeling? Is this story very complete? And can we do it? Is it very logical? And is the emotion really true? And then if I feel, okay, that's what I want. And then I sent it to the editors. If one just rejected, I sent to another, and I find perhaps the suitable editor for the story. But sometimes when they reject the story, and then I think about the story again, I found out, I made it too complicated. because first I just want to write one thing, and then I add two elements, and it's more mixed. It's not very good. So I just compare one story with the feeling of my heart. If it matches, and then I'll just leave it to the world.
It's interesting reading, Folding Beijing. I thought a lot about George Orwell in 1984 because it's dystopian, but it's also what he did with his book and what you did with Folding Beijing is you take something that's actually happening right now and you put it off in the distance. And I think maybe it's easier for us to digest what's going on now if it's put off in the distance. Talk to me about that. Was that a conscious effort on your part? Because you really do focus on something that's happening right now in a sense.
Yeah. That's why I write the story. I'm focusing in the reality, and I like to describe the reality in a different way. However, it's not purely reality. It's still some mental experiment into the future. It's the near future. It's some kind of scenario quite close to nowadays. It's not like Star Wars when people already conquered the galaxy. And I think that when we think about the future, then there is always the question is that what would change, what would not, and where's the direction? If you think about nowadays with 1,000 years ago, you will find out although a lot of things changed, all the electricity equipment and machineries, these things are new. But how you eat your food, how you spend time with your family, and how people react with each other. Friend, family, love, and rich and poor, and career, and dreams, and disparity, all these things. Perhaps it's the same with 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. The human society, there are always something permanent within the human society. But at the same time, a lot of things are changing, and technical things are changing, and this will affect the human society to a large extent. So I'm always thinking about the permanent thing and the changing thing. When I do the mental experiment, I will carefully select the changing thing. I would like to write one society that's purely, completely different as nowadays. For example, people don't eat things. People just inject some liquid to keep healthy, or people will all become superhero. I think that if everything has changed, it's not it's not true. Even when we face a future 1,000 years from now, I think there are perhaps still a lot of permanent things as the same today. People love each other, but they may not have the chance to go together. And people still would like to form a family. They still care about friends, self-esteem. All the things I think will be the same. I just would like to describe the life, the real life in another future.
Folding Beijing is now being adapted into an English language movie directed by Korean-American Josh Kim. Jingfang won't be involved in the film adaptation, but gave her blessing for the director to take liberties with her story.
It's just like throwing a floating bottle into the sea. And then I write the story in the bottle, and I throw the bottle into the sea. And it floats into the sea, and it goes to nowhere. I don't know where it goes. So sometimes, perhaps some stories just sank into the sea. Some stories may go to the other places in the world, and I just don't know.
It's almost the bottle that you threw out at the sea that came back to you again, because I hear it's going to be a novel, a movie. So it has kind of taken on a remarkable life of its own, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I meet with the movie director very frequently, and I think he did a quite good job in developing the story. And he's now still working on the script. He has about four versions already, and I hope that the movie can be cast next year. And also, but it's also the story's own destiny. I did not join the movie project. I only talked to the director and say good luck to him. I think the movie is the work of the director. It's another piece of art. It's his art, and my story is only the inspiration for him. It's only the origin ideas for him. But for movie, the story, the idea is only the beginning, and he need to do a lot of development works for all the art, all the visual part, or the animation, a lot of things, and also the script. All these are the recreation of the story. So I still see it's like a floating bottle. Now the bottle gets into the director's hand, and he makes it into another piece of work. And after that, perhaps it will also be developed into some other new forms.
You undoubtedly have more bottles you want to throw out into the ocean. What are some of the projects you're working on now? And do you juggle a few at a time, or do you just kind of concentrate on one, and once it's done you move on to another? Or
actually, I have a list of ideas that I can write about, but each of them requires time to work on it. Now I force myself to concentrate on my new full-length novel, because it's a project I already started for 3 years, but now I did only little progress, because in this new long novel, I involved aliens into humans' civilization, and I also explored something into the far history, and so I need to learn a lot of things. I need to create the new physics. I need to create the new explanations to the historical things. I need to build strong characters at the hero of this new journey. It's perhaps it is the most difficult project that I've ever done. So I'm now working onto it. After I finish it, perhaps I hope for early next year, and then I can do some more projects. I do have some more ideas, but I now just hold them down. I need to concentrate on this one.
and the title will be?
The origin of civilization.
We'll look forward to it. I'll let you get back to work with it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a delight.